Hello everyone, Nils Vinje here, founder and CEO of Glide Consulting. Glide is a customer success consulting firm, and I work with fast-growing SaaS organizations to help them build world-class customer success. One of the areas that I spend a lot of time with my clients on is onboarding and user adoption. And that's why I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk about UserIQ's 2018 benchmark report on onboarding and user adoption. Now, this report was compiled as a result of surveying more than 450 SaaS leaders to understand how these companies are tackling onboarding and user adoption challenges. So one of the findings that came out of the report was that 75% of respondents ranked adoption as extremely or very important. 74% are spending up to half their week focused on user adoption initiatives. However, 40% say they have no formal strategy in place. So we know this is critically important. 3/4 of them, 75%, said yes. Nearly the same percentage, 74%, said they're spending a lot of time on this, up to half of their week, but 40% have no formal strategy in place. This is kind of an interesting finding. And so I'm going to talk with you about three key things around this finding. Number one, what I think some of the inhibitors are to putting a proper strategy and plan in place. Number two, what I think it'll really take to bridge the gap between awareness and action. And number three, what advice that I can provide to you and other companies looking to take the first step in developing a formal adoption strategy. Okay, so let's dig into the first one, inhibitors. I think the number one inhibitor here is time. Now, this is kind of a general scapegoat, like everybody says. There's not enough time to do all the things I need to do, especially in the customer success field. But what I mean here is taking the time out to plan. Right? Taking the time out to plan is one of the most important activities, because if you don't take out the time to plan, you will forever be in a reactive state. And I think that's what we see here in this survey data. Everybody, 3/4 of the survey respondents said, it's an extremely important, I spend time on it, and nearly half, 40%, said, I don't have a formal plan in place, which means their focus on the user adoption and onboarding challenges they're going through is largely ad hoc, right? So the biggest inhibitor, I think, is taking time out to plan. What I think it'll take to bridge the gap between awareness and action is creating a system. And a system is something that is repeatable over and over. This requires having a long-term view and one of the big picture, right? Where do we want our customers to be from an adoption onboarding perspective at the end of onboarding, and from an adoption perspective at the end of the first year with our service? Where do we want them to be? Right? If you don't know what that is, the age-old saying of you don't know where you're going, any road's going to get you there applies, right? And you will forever deal with ad hoc situations that come up where you're trying to quote unquote drive adoption, but it's really in an ad hoc one-off way instead of a systematic way, where you know that if you execute against these things over time, you will ultimately achieve your end goal. So the advice that I would give to companies that are looking to take a first step in developing a formal adoption strategy is first to begin with the end in mind. Define what it is from an adoption perspective that your customers have to achieve at the end of year one with your service, and at the end of year two, and at the end of year three, right? One of the most common mistakes I see amongst all SaaS companies is the desire to overload new clients with tons of information just because the product is capable of it. So in onboarding, instead of nailing one use case and just the thing they came to you for, clients are, some companies are giving them too much. So if you think about adoption as a long-term strategy, that completely changes when you introduce certain pieces of your application to your clients. And when you focus on that, right? So if you begin with the end in mind and know where you want to go, then you can systematically back up into quarters or months and focus on different areas to help drive that adoption. And I'd be pretty well served to guess that there's likely a consistent theme in your most successful customers, right? When in doubt, look at your most successful customers, look at how they adopted, look at where they got to in a year. And that's the model that you got to build. So ultimately, breaking things up over time to build the pieces of a long-term strategy is critically important. That's the advice I would give to companies to develop a formal adoption strategy. So thanks so much for listening to me. I enjoyed this piece with UserIQ. You can find me online connect with me on LinkedIn at Nils Vinje, V as in Victor, INJE, and first name is Nils, Nils, or on Twitter at Nils Vinje. And I've got a whole host of articles and blogs and interviews on glideconsultingllc.com. I look forward to connecting with you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.